How did a single sentence from my mother-in-law about a dog lead me to uncover who really targeted my house while I was saving lives on a night shift? Why did the security footage change everything I thought I knew about my family? And how did the people who mocked my role as a father learn what real protection actually looks like? Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The words came out like a joke, but they landed like a diagnosis. Maybe you should get a dog, Tainer. At least it would be home when someone needs protecting. Margaret Caldwell said it while loading the dishwasher in my kitchen, her back to me, voice light and casual. My daughter, Rinna, froze with a glass of water halfway to her lips. My wife, Laura, stopped mid-sentence, her hand still reaching for the salt shaker. I was standing near the counter, coffee mug in hand, wearing the same scrubs I'd come home in 6 hours earlier. I'd worked a 12-hour shift in the ER, the kind where 3 people almost didn't make it, and 2 of them still might not. My hands still smelled like antiseptic, despite 2 showers. "Mom," Laura said quietly. "What? I'm just saying." Margaret turned around, wiping her hands on a towel. "He's never here at night. The house is empty. A dog would bark. That's all." Rena set the glass down and looked at me. She was 9 years old and smart enough to recognize an insult even when it was wrapped in concern. "I work nights," I said. "That's my schedule." I know. You're very important." Margaret smiled, but her eyes didn't. "I'm just thinking practically. Laura's here alone with Emma. Anything could happen." "Nothing's going to happen," Laura said, but her tone was more pleading than firm. Margaret shrugged. "I'm just saying what everyone thinks." I took a slow sip of coffee. It was cold. I'd poured it 20 minutes ago and forgotten about it while Rinna told me about her science project. Margaret had arrived 15 minutes ago, unannounced, carrying a bag of groceries Laura hadn't asked for. "A dog's a lot of responsibility," I said. "So is a family," Margaret replied. The silence that followed was the kind that makes rooms feel smaller. Laura cleared her throat and started talking about weekend plans, something about visiting Margaret's place, maybe staying over Saturday night while I worked. Renee asked if she could bring her tablet. Margaret said of course, said it would be nice to have them, said the house gets lonely. I finished my coffee and set the mug in the sink. "I'm going to sleep," I said. "I work again tonight." Nobody argued. I went upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and sat on the edge of the bed. Through the floor, I could hear Margaret's voice, muffled but steady, still talking. Laura's responses were quieter, harder to make out. A dog. I'd spent the last 12 hours keeping people alive. I'd restarted a heart that had stopped twice. I'd stitched a wound that ran from a man's shoulder to his elbow. I'd held a woman's hand while she took her last breath because her family hadn't arrived yet. And I came home to be told I wasn't enough. I stood up and walked to the window. The front yard looked calm, lawn trimmed, hedges neat, the neighbor's car in their driveway. Everything normal, everything safe. I thought about the security system I'd installed 2 years ago. 8 cameras, motion sensors, glass break detectors, monitored entry points. I'd done it quietly, not making a big deal of it, just wanting to know Laura and Rinna were protected. Margaret didn't know about it. Laura barely paid attention to it. It was just there, running in the background, recording everything. I pulled the curtains closed and lay down. Sleep came slowly, interrupted by fragments of Margaret's voice, the memory of Emma's expression, the weight of words that shouldn't have mattered, but somehow did. By the time I woke up, the sun was setting. Laura brought me a sandwich and kissed my forehead. "She didn't mean it the way it sounded," she said. "I know." "She's just protective?" "I know. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." She left, and I ate the sandwich without tasting it. Downstairs, I could hear Rinna watching TV. I checked my phone. Shift started in 90 minutes. I had time for another shower, maybe some coffee that was actually hot this time. I went to the bathroom and turned on the water. In the mirror, I looked exactly like what I was, a 41-year-old man who worked too many hours and slept too little. My hair was starting to gray at the temples, lines around my eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Maybe you should get a dog. I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and headed downstairs. Rinna was curled up on the couch, half asleep. I kissed the top of her head. "Love you, kiddo." "Love you too, Dad." Laura walked me to the door. "Drive safe. Always." I backed out of the driveway and headed toward the hospital. The route was automatic by now. Muscle memory. 15 minutes of suburban streets, then the highway, then the exit that dropped me right at the employee parking lot. The ER was already busy when I arrived. A woman with chest pain, a kid with a broken arm, an overdose case that took 3 of us to stabilize. The hours blurred together the way they always did, adrenaline and procedure and focus. Around midnight, during a brief lull, I sat in the locker room and checked my phone, a text from Laura. "Emma's asleep. I'm heading to bed. Be safe." I sent back a thumbs up and put the phone away. 2 more texts sat unread. One from my mom, one from a medical supply company about back-ordered equipment. I'd answer them later. By 3 a.m., we had another trauma case. Car accident. The driver didn't make it. I was still filling out paperwork when my shift ended at 7. I walked out into the early morning light and drove home. The streets were empty. The sun was just starting to climb. Everything looked clean and quiet. I pulled into my driveway and sat there for a moment, engine off, just staring at the house. It looked the same as always. White siding, blue shutters, Emma's bike leaning against the garage door. Then I noticed the front door. It was closed, but something about it looked wrong. I got out of the car and walked closer. The frame was splintered near the lock. The wood was cracked. The door itself was slightly crooked, like it had been forced open and then pulled shut again. I reached for my phone, but before I could dial, the door opened. Laura stood there, pale and shaking. "Someone broke in," she said. The police came within 15 minutes. 2 officers, one older and calm, one younger and taking notes. They walked through the house slowly, checking rooms, asking questions. "Anything missing?" the older one asked. Laura shook her head. "I don't think so. I haven't checked everything yet." "How'd you discover it?" "I came downstairs this morning and saw the door." "What time was that?" "Around 6:30. The officer nodded and wrote something down. The younger one was examining the door frame, running his fingers over the splintered wood. "Looks like they used a pry bar," he said. "Forced it right at the lock. Quick and simple." "Any idea when it happened?" I asked. "Hard to say. Could have been any time during the night." Rina was upstairs in her room. Laura had told her to stay there, told her the police were just checking something. I could hear the TV through the ceiling, some cartoon playing too loud. The officers finished their walkthrough and came back to the living room. The older one closed his notebook. "We'll file a report," he said. "Looks like they got spooked and left before taking anything. Probably heard a noise or saw a light. You're lucky." "Lucky," Laura repeated. "Could have been worse. You might want to upgrade that lock. Get a deadbolt. Maybe a security system." "We have a security system," I said. The officer looked surprised. "You do?" 8 cameras. Motion sensors. The whole setup. "Did it catch anything?" "I haven't checked yet." "You should. If you've got footage, bring it to the station. We can take a look." They left a few minutes later, promising to increase patrols in the neighborhood. Laura closed the door behind them and leaned against it. "I didn't even know we had cameras," she said. "I installed them 2 years ago." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I did. You said okay." She looked at me like she was trying to remember, then shook her head. I guess I forgot." I walked into the living room and pulled up the security app on my phone. The system was still armed, still recording. I scrolled back through the night, checking timestamps. Nothing unusual until 2:47 a.m. Then movement. 2 figures appeared in the front yard, walking up the driveway. Both wearing dark clothes, faces partially covered. One was taller, broader. The other was shorter, quicker. They moved with purpose, not hesitation. The taller one went straight to the front door. I watched him pull something from his jacket, watched him wedge it into the frame, watched him lean his weight into it. The door cracked open within seconds. They went inside. Laura was standing behind me now, looking over my shoulder. "Oh my God." "They were in the house," I said quietly. "For how long?" I fast-forwarded. The timestamp jumped ahead. 3 minutes, 5, 8, then movement again. Both figures came back out, empty-handed, moving faster now. The taller one pulled the door shut behind them, then they disappeared off camera. Total time inside, 11 minutes. "What were they doing?" Laura asked. "I don't know." I rewound the footage, played it again. This time I focused on details. The way they moved, the way they communicated without words. The taller one's posture, shoulders slightly hunched, gait familiar. I paused the video. "What?" Laura asked. "Nothing. I need to check the other cameras." I pulled up the side yard camera, the backyard camera, the driveway camera. Nothing showed them arriving or leaving beyond what I'd already seen. They'd walked up from the street, stayed visible for less than 2 minutes total, then vanished. But something about the taller one wouldn't leave my mind. I watched the footage a third time, focusing only on him. The way he moved his hand when he gestured to the shorter one. The way he turned his head. the slight limp in his right leg. I knew that limp. Laura's phone rang. She answered it, stepping into the kitchen. I could hear her voice rising, stressed and shaky, explaining what happened. "Mom, we're fine. Yes, the police came. No, nothing was taken. I know. I closed the app and sat back on the couch. My head felt heavy. I'd been awake for 26 hours straight. My body wanted sleep, but my brain wouldn't stop replaying those 11 minutes. Margaret arrived 30 minutes later, bursting through the door like she owned the place. Victor was with her, quiet and uncomfortable, standing just behind her shoulder. "Are you all right?" Margaret pulled Laura into a hug. "I can't believe this happened. In this neighborhood." "We're okay," Laura said. "Where's Emma?" "Upstairs." Margaret headed for the stairs immediately. Victor stayed in the doorway, hands in his pockets, looking anywhere but at me. "Hey, Tainer," he said finally. "Victor." "Rough morning." "Yeah." He shifted his weight. That slight favor of his left leg. That small adjustment of balance. "Good thing nobody was home," he said. "Laura was home. Rinna was home." "Oh, right. I just meant good thing they didn't run into anyone." Margaret came back down with Emma, who looked more annoyed than scared. "Can I go back to my show now?" "In a minute, sweetie." Margaret steered her toward the kitchen. "Let's get you some breakfast." Victor finally stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His eyes flicked toward the splintered frame, then away. "You should get that fixed," he said. "I will." "Want me to take a look? I'm pretty handy with wood." "I've got it." He nodded, rocking back on his heels. "Sure, just offering." Margaret's voice carried from the kitchen, loud and sharp. This is exactly what I was talking about yesterday. Tainer, you can't leave them alone like this." I stood up. My hands were shaking, so I crossed my arms to hide it. "I was at work," I said. I know, but still." She appeared in the doorway, arms folded, mouth set in a line. "Maybe it's time to reconsider your schedule. Work days for a while. Be home at night." "That's not how it works." "Then make it work. Your family needs you." Victor cleared his throat. "Maybe we should let them rest, Maggie." "I'm just saying what needs to be said." But she dropped it, turning back to Emma. "You're coming to stay with us this weekend, both of you. I won't take no for an answer." Laura looked at me. I could see the question in her eyes, the unspoken plea for me to agree, to not make this harder. "That's fine," I said. "Good." Margaret smiled, satisfied. "Victor, we should go. Let them get some rest." They left a few minutes later. Victor didn't say goodbye. I watched through the window as they got into Margaret's car, watched her back out of the driveway, watched them disappear down the street. Then I went to my office and closed the door. I pulled up the security footage again, downloaded the clips, saved them to 3 different locations. Then I watched them one more time, frame by frame, noting every detail, the limp, the posture, the hand gestures, the way he'd looked at the door afterward, like he was proud of his work. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a notebook. Clean pages, empty lines. At the top of the first page, I wrote one name, Victor Caldwell. Then I closed the notebook and turned off the light. I didn't sleep that day. My body was too wired, my mind running through details like a diagnostic checklist. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Laura talk to her mother on the phone downstairs, listening to Rena play in her room. Around noon, I gave up and went to the office. I closed the door and pulled up the footage again. This time, I went slower. I isolated the moments where the taller figure's face was most visible. The camera angles weren't perfect. I'd positioned them for coverage, not identification, but there were glimpses. A quarter profile when he turned to check the street, a brief full face when he looked up at the side camera, maybe not realizing it was there. I took screenshots, enhanced them as much as the software allowed. The image quality degraded quickly, pixels blurring into approximation, but the structure remained. The shape of the jaw, the set of the eyes, the way the cheekbones caught the light. I opened a browser and searched for Victor Caldwell's social media. His profile was public, filled with photos of him and Margaret at restaurants, at parks, at family gatherings. I scrolled through until I found a recent one, taken at Laura's birthday dinner 3 months ago. Side by side on my monitor, the screenshot from the security footage and Victor's profile picture. Same bone structure, same build, same slight asymmetry in the shoulders. I sat back and rubbed my eyes. The responsible thing would be to take this to the police immediately. Let them handle it. Let the system work. But Margaret's voice kept replaying in my head. "Maybe you should get a dog. He's never here at night. You can't leave them alone like this." I pulled up the timeline again. The break-in happened at 2:47 a.m. Margaret had known I'd be at work. She'd suggested the weekend visit herself, emphasizing how nice it would be to have Laura and Rinna stay over while I was on shift. She'd created the opportunity, and Victor had taken it. But why? Nothing was stolen. They'd spent 11 minutes inside and left empty-handed. What were they looking for? I checked the other camera angles, the interior ones. We had 3 inside, one covering the living room, one in the hallway upstairs, one in the kitchen. All were motion activated, recording only when something moved. The living room camera caught them first, both figures entering through the front door, moving quickly but not frantically. The taller one, Victor, went straight to the desk in the corner. He opened drawers, shuffled papers, closed them again. The shorter one went upstairs. I switched to the hallway camera. He appeared at the top of the steps, paused, then headed toward the master bedroom. The camera didn't cover the room itself, but I could see him go in, see the light from his phone flashlight sweeping the walls. He was in there for 4 minutes. Then he came back out, shook his head at Victor downstairs, and they both left. What were they looking for? I thought about the contents of my bedroom. Clothes, books. Laura's jewelry box, which held maybe $1,000 worth of sentimental pieces. Nothing extraordinary. My wallet was in my pocket at the hospital. Our laptops were both with us. Unless they weren't looking for things. Unless they were looking for information. I pulled up my banking app. Everything looked normal. No unusual transactions, no attempts to access the account. I checked credit cards, investment accounts, Emma's college fund, all untouched. My phone buzzed. A text from Laura. Mom wants us to come over tonight instead of Saturday. Said she'll feel better if we're not alone in the house. Is that okay? I stared at the message for a long time. Whatever you think is best, I typed back. 3 dots appeared immediately. Are you sure? Yeah, I'll be at work anyway. Okay, love you. Love you too. I set the phone down and looked at the notebook I'd written Victor's name in. Next to it, I added Margaret's name. Then I drew a line connecting them. Then I picked up my phone and made a call. Rutherford and Associates, how may I help you? I need to speak with someone about a property security case. One moment, please. The hold music was generic classical, something with violins. I waited. This is Blair Rutherford. Mr. Rutherford, my name is Tainer Holden. I need legal advice about a home invasion incident. Has this been reported to the police? Yes, this morning. But I need to understand my options regarding civil implications. All right. Can you come in this afternoon? I have an opening at 3. I'll be there. I hung up and checked the time. 2 hours. I forwarded the security footage to my email, backed it up on a flash drive, then backed it up again on a separate external hard drive. Then I went downstairs. Laura was packing a bag for her and Emma. Clothes, toiletries, Emma's tablet and charger. You're going tonight? I asked. Mom's really insistent, and honestly, I'll feel better too. Just for a few days until you can get the door fixed and maybe add more locks or something. Sure. She paused, looking at me. Are you okay? Just tired. You should sleep before your shift. I will. But I didn't. I waited until they left, watched them drive away, then got in my car and headed to the lawyer's office. Blair Rutherford was in his early 50s. Gray hair and rimless glasses, the kind of calm that came from decades of handling other people's crises. His office was neat and impersonal. Law books on shelves, framed degrees on the wall. Tell me what happened, he said. I told him. The break-in, the police report, the security footage, the recognition. And you're certain it was your mother-in-law's partner? Yes. Has he been to your home before? Multiple times, family gatherings, holidays. He knows the layout. Rutherford nodded, making notes. And nothing was taken? Nothing. What do you think they were looking for? I don't know. He set down his pen and leaned back. Here's your situation. You have footage that may or may not be conclusive enough for criminal charges. Even if it is, proving Margaret's involvement will be difficult unless Victor implicates her, which he's unlikely to do. So, what are my options? Civilly, you could pursue a restraining order. You could sue for damages, emotional distress, invasion of privacy. But all of that requires you to go public with accusations against your wife's mother. That'll destroy your family. It's already destroyed. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, your wife doesn't know what you suspect. Neither does your daughter. You could keep it that way. Move forward quietly. Increase security. Keep distance. Let it fade. Or you make a stand. But understand what that means. You'll be choosing consequences over peace, and you can't undo that choice. I sat in silence, thinking about Margaret's face when she'd hugged Laura that morning. The performance of concern. the careful words designed to make me look negligent. "I need time to think," I said. "Take all the time you need, but don't sit on that footage forever. If you're going to use it while it's still relevant." I left his office and sat in my car in the parking lot. Across the street was a cafe, busy with the afternoon crowd. Through the window, I could see people talking, laughing, living normal lives where their families didn't break into their homes. Now my phone buzzed, a text from Margaret. "Laura and Renara here safe. You should rest easy tonight knowing they're protected." I read it 3 times. Knowing they're protected. I started the car and drove to the hospital. My shift didn't start for 2 hours, but the locker room was quiet and empty. I sat on the bench and stared at my hands. These hands had saved lives, stopped bleeding, restarted hearts. They were capable hands, reliable hands, and somehow they weren't enough to protect my own family. I pulled out the notebook and opened to the page with the 2 names. Then I picked up my pen and started writing everything I knew. Times, dates, comments, patterns, the weekend visit suggestion, the dog comment, Victor's discomfort that morning, his offer to fix the door. By the time I finished, I had 3 pages of notes. Then I went to work my shift, and for 12 hours I focused on other people's emergencies, other people's crises, other people's pain. When I came home at 7 a.m., the house was empty and silent. I walked through every room, checking for changes, for anything disturbed. Everything looked normal. But it didn't feel normal. It felt like a place I was visiting, not a place I lived. I went to the office and checked the cameras. No activity overnight, no movement except a cat crossing the front yard at 4 a.m. I saved the footage anyway. Then I went to bed and tried to sleep, but all I could see was Victor's face in the grainy screenshot, and all I could hear was Margaret's voice. "Maybe you should get a dog." The rest of the week passed in a strange fog. Laura and Rinna stayed at Margaret's house. I worked my shifts, came home to an empty house, slept in fragments. We texted. We talked on the phone. Everything sounded normal, but there was a new distance, a gap that hadn't been there before. On Thursday, Laura brought Rhina home to get more clothes. I was awake, drinking coffee in the kitchen when they arrived. "Hey," Laura said. She looked tired. "Hey." Rhina hugged me quickly, then ran upstairs. Laura set her purse on the counter and crossed her arms. "When are you going to fix the door?" "Tomorrow. I have the day off." "Good. Mom's been asking." "I'm sure she has." Laura's expression tightened. "What does that mean?" "Nothing. I'll fix the door." "Tainer, if you have something to say about my mother." "I don't. Because she's been really helpful this week, really supportive." "I know." "And that comment about the dog, that was just her being worried. She didn't mean anything by it." "Okay." "Stop saying okay like that." "Like what?" "Like you're just agreeing to end the conversation." I set down my coffee. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to, I don't know, participate, engage. You've been so distant lately." "I work nights. I'm always distant." She flinched. "That's not what I meant." Rena came back downstairs with a backpack stuffed full. "Ready, Mom?" Laura picked up her purse. "We'll come back on Sunday. For good, I mean. Mom's been great, but I know Rana misses her own room." "Sounds good?" She hesitated, like she wanted to say something else, then just nodded. "Okay. See you Sunday." They left. I watched through the window as they drove away, then pulled out my phone and called Rutherford's office. "I need to know about financial records," I said when he answered. "If someone has access to my property, can I track what they have accessed financially?" "Depends. Do they have your banking information?" "Not that I know of, but they were in my house for 11 minutes. Could have taken pictures of documents, account numbers, anything." "Check your statements. Look for unusual activity. If you see anything suspicious, freeze the accounts and file a report." "What about their finances? Can I look into that?" "Not legally, no. Not without cause. Why?" "I think there's a financial motive. I just don't know what it is yet." "Yeah, be careful, Tainer. If you start digging into people's finances without authorization, you're crossing lines that'll hurt you later." "What if I find something?" "Then you bring it to me, and we determine if it's actionable, but you can't go looking for it yourself." I thanked him and hung up. Then I opened my laptop and started going through bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts. Line by line, transaction by transaction. Everything was clean. I checked Laura's accounts next, the ones I had access to. Joint checking, joint savings, the shared credit card. Also clean. But there was a third account, one in Laura's name alone, that I didn't have access to. She'd opened it years ago for her personal spending before we were married. We'd never closed it, never saw a reason to. She barely used it. I pulled up the bank's website and tried to log in with her email. Password reset option. Security question, mother's maiden name, Caldwell. I typed it in. The system accepted it. New password created. The account loaded. Balance, $11,000. Last activity, a deposit of $5,000, 6 days before the break-in. Source, Victor Caldwell. I stared at the screen, reading the details again and again. The money had come from an account in Victor's name. The memo line was blank. $5,000, 6 days before someone broke into my house. I scrolled back further. More deposits, smaller amounts. 300 here, 500 there. All from Victor, all over the past 8 months. Total, $18,000. I closed the laptop and stood up. My hands were shaking again. I walked to the window, looked out at the empty street, tried to make sense of it. Why would Victor give Laura money? And why wouldn't Laura tell me? My phone buzzed, a text from Margaret. How's the door coming along? Want Victor to help? He's very good with repairs. I read it twice, then deleted it without responding. Then I called Rutherford again. I found something, I said. Tell me. I explained about the account, the deposits, the timing. That's interesting, he said carefully. But it's not illegal. He's allowed to give her money. $18,000 right before breaking into my house? Correlation isn't causation, and you need to consider another possibility. What? That your wife knows. The words hit like a physical blow. I sat down hard on the office chair. That's not. She wouldn't. Tainer, I'm not saying she does. I'm saying you need to consider all possibilities before you make accusations. Talk to her. Ask her about the money. I can't. She'll know I accessed her account. Then you need to decide what's more important, the truth or the peace. I hung up and sat in silence. The house felt too big suddenly, too empty. Every room held memories that now felt contaminated. Laura laughing in the kitchen, Rena playing in the living room, Margaret's voice cutting through it all. Maybe you should get a dog. I went to the bedroom and pulled out the folder where we kept important documents. Birth certificates, social security cards, the deed to the house. The deed was in my name alone. I'd bought the house 2 years before Laura and I got married, back when I was finishing my residency and she was working as a school counselor. We'd never changed it, never saw a reason to. But now it mattered. Because if Margaret thought Laura had a claim to the property, if Victor thought there was something here worth taking, they were wrong. I put the folder back and checked my watch. 3 hours until my next shift. I had time. I drove across town to the bank, walked in, and asked to speak with an account manager. I need to know if anyone's requested information about my accounts recently, I said. The manager, a woman in her 30s with patient eyes, pulled up my information. What kind of information? Balances, access codes, anything. She clicked through screens. I don't see any requests. Has there been suspicious activity? No, just checking. Would you like to add additional security to your accounts? Yes. She walked me through the process. New passwords, security questions only I would know, 2-factor authentication on every login attempt. By the time I left, my accounts were locked down tighter than the ER's medication cabinet. Then I drove to the hospital and worked another 12-hour shift where nobody questioned my competence. Nobody suggested I wasn't enough. Nobody broke into my workspace and tried to take what wasn't theirs. When I came home Friday morning, there was a truck in my driveway. Victor's truck. I parked on the street and walked up slowly. The front door was open. I could hear voices inside. Just need to reinforce the frame here, Victor was saying. Won't take long. I stepped through the doorway. He was kneeling by the door, toolbox open, drill in hand. Margaret stood nearby, supervising. Tainer, she said, smiling. Good, you're home. Victor offered to fix the door, save you the trouble. I was going to do it today. Well, now you don't have to. Victor's almost finished. I looked at him. He wouldn't meet my eyes, just kept working, screwing a new strike plate into the reinforced frame. There, he said, standing up. That should hold. You'll want to get a deadbolt, too. I can install one if you want. No, I said. That's fine. Margaret's smile tightened. He's just trying to help. I know, but I've got it from here. Victor packed up his tools quickly, eager to leave. Margaret lingered, looking around the living room like she was inventorying it. House seems emptier with Laura and Rena gone, she said. They'll be back Sunday. Good. They shouldn't be alone here. They're not alone. I'm here. You know what I mean? She left with Victor, finally, and I closed the door behind them. The new hardware looked solid, professional. Victor was good with his hands when he wanted to be. Good enough to force open a door without leaving obvious tool marks. Good enough to make it look like a random break-in. I checked the security cameras. They'd been inside for 20 minutes before I arrived. Both of them. Margaret had gone upstairs while Victor worked on the door. I pulled up the hallway camera. She'd gone into the master bedroom? I switched to my phone and opened the bedroom camera feed. A new one I'd installed 3 days ago, hidden in the bookshelf, covering the entire room. Margaret was visible clearly. She'd opened my desk drawer, the one where I kept personal papers. She'd rifled through them quickly, phone in hand, taking pictures. Then she'd moved to the closet, checking Laura's side, then mine. Looking for something. Still looking. I downloaded the footage and saved it with the rest. Then I went upstairs and checked the desk drawer. Everything looked untouched, but I knew it wasn't. I pulled out the notebook I'd been writing in, the one with Margaret and Victor's names in it. The pages were slightly out of order. Someone had read them. I smiled. Let them know I knew. Let them wonder what I was going to do about it. I put the notebook back exactly where it had been and went to bed. For the first time all week, I slept soundly. Sunday arrived gray and cold. Laura texted in the morning saying they'd be home by noon. I spent the time cleaning, making the house feel lived in again. Vacuumed carpets, wiped counters, put fresh sheets on Emma's bed. At 11:30, Margaret's car pulled into the driveway. Laura and Renegoat out first. Margaret stayed in the driver's seat, engine running. Through the windshield, I could see her watching as Laura grabbed their bags from the trunk. Rinna ran inside and hugged me. I missed home. Missed you too, kiddo. Laura came in more slowly, bags in hand. She looked worn out. Everything okay? I asked. Fine, just tired. Mom's been a lot. Margaret got out of the car and walked up to the door. She didn't come inside, just stood on the threshold. The door looks good, she said. Victor does nice work. Yeah, thanks for that. We take care of family. Her eyes moved past me, scanning the living room. You should come to dinner this week, all of you, Wednesday night. I work Wednesday night. Thursday, then. I work Thursday, too. When don't you work? I'm off next Sunday. Fine, Sunday dinner, 6 o'clock. Don't be late. She turned back to her car, then paused. And Tainer? Get a better lock. That deadbolt's important. She left before I could respond. Laura set the bags down and sighed. She means well? I didn't answer. Rinna had already disappeared upstairs, probably to her room, probably relieved to be in her own space again. I need to tell you something, Laura said. My chest tightened. Okay. Mom's been asking questions about our finances, about the house, about my name being on the deed. What did you tell her? The truth, that it's in your name, that we never changed it after we got married. She looked at me carefully. Should we change it? Do you want to? I don't know. She made it sound like it was weird that we haven't. It's not weird. Lots of couples keep property in one name. She said if something happened to you, I'd have to fight for the house. Nothing's going to happen to me. But if it did? Laura. I kept my voice calm. Why is your mother suddenly concerned about the house? She hesitated. She's worried. After the break-in, she thinks we should be more prepared. Prepared for what? I don't know. She's protective. You know how she is? I did know. That was the problem. There's something else, Laura said. She wants to loan us money, to upgrade security. New cameras, new locks, maybe a monitoring service. We don't need her money. I know, but she's insistent. She said she can give us $10,000, just to help. $10,000. Half of what Victor had already deposited into Laura's secret account. Did you tell her no? I asked. I said I'd talk to you. Then talk to me. Do we need her money? No, but it would make her feel better. This isn't about making her feel better. Laura's expression shifted, frustration creeping in. Why do you always do this? Do what? Make everything about her being controlling. She's trying to help. Is she? What's that supposed to mean? I wanted to tell her. Wanted to show her the security footage, the bank records, the timeline. Wanted to lay it all out and watch her face as she realized what her mother really was. But Rutherford's warning echoed in my head. You need to consider all possibilities. That your wife knows. Nothing, I said. Tell her thanks, but no thanks. We're fine. Laura stared at me for a moment, then picked up the bags and headed upstairs. I heard her footsteps, heard Emma's door open, heard their muffled conversation. I went to the office and closed the door. The notebook was still in the desk drawer where I'd left it. I opened it and added a new entry. Sunday, November 14th. Margaret offers $10,000. Laura asks about deed. Victor's deposits total $18,000. Endgame unclear. Then I pulled up the security footage from that morning when Margaret had stood at the door. I zoomed in on her face, caught her expression in the moment before she turned away. She wasn't worried, she was calculating. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Dr. Holden? This is Detective Morrison, County Police. We spoke briefly at your home last Monday about the break-in. I remember. I wanted to follow up. Have you had a chance to review your security footage? I have. And? It shows two people entering the house at 2:47 a.m., both male, both wearing dark clothing. Can you identify them? I paused. This was the moment. Say yes, and the system takes over. Say no, and I keep control. The footage isn't clear enough, I said. I can send it to you if you want to try enhancement. Please do. Email it to the address on my card. Will do. And Dr. Holden, if you remember anything else, or if anything seems unusual, don't hesitate to call. I won't. I hung up and stared at the phone. I'd just lied to a police detective, withheld evidence, obstructed an investigation. But it was my evidence, my house, my family, and I wanted control over how this ended. I forwarded the footage to Detective Morrison, but only the exterior angles. The clips that showed two figures but no clear identification. The interior footage stayed on my hard drive, password protected, backed up in 3 locations. Then I checked the calendar. Next Sunday, dinner at Margaret's house, 6 o'clock, 1 week to prepare. I pulled up the bank website and logged into Laura's account again. No new deposits, no withdrawals. Just the $18,000 sitting there, waiting. I took screenshots of every transaction, every deposit, every date, saved them all, organized them chronologically, built a timeline. Then I called Rutherford. I need to file something, I said, but I need to do it carefully. File what? A formal complaint, property trespass, attempted burglary, conspiracy. Against who? Margaret Caldwell and Victor Caldwell. Silence on the other end. You're sure? He said finally. I'm sure. Then we need to meet. Tomorrow. Bring everything you have. I will. I hung up and looked around the office. This room had always been my space, my sanctuary. Now it felt like a command center. Evidence folders, timeline notes, screenshots and videos and financial records. Everything I needed to win. Outside, I heard Laura call Rena for lunch. Heard their voices in the kitchen, normal and domestic. A snapshot of family life that was about to shatter. But it was already broken. I was just making the damage visible. I put the notebook away and went downstairs. Laura had made sandwiches. Rena was talking about school, about a project due next week. Dad, can you help me with my science presentation? Of course. It's about the circulatory system. I thought since you're a doctor, I'd love to help. Margaret had been right about one thing. Family needed protection. She just didn't understand who the real threat was. Monday afternoon, I sat across from Blair Rutherford in his office. 3 folders stacked between us. Security footage, financial records, timeline documentation. He reviewed everything in silence, occasionally making notes, his expression neutral. This is substantial, he said finally. Is it enough? For a civil case? Absolutely. For criminal charges? That depends on the prosecutor, but you've got a strong foundation. He tapped the financial records. These deposits are concerning. $18,000 in 8 months, all from Victor to your wife's personal account. You're sure she doesn't know? I'm not sure of anything anymore. You need to be sure before we proceed. If Laura's involved, this gets complicated. She's not involved. She just doesn't see what her mother really is. Rutherford leaned back. If you file this complaint, you're declaring war on your wife's family. That means forcing her to choose sides. Are you prepared for that? The question hit hard. I have to be. Then talk to her first. Show her what you found. Give her a chance to process it before the legal system gets involved. I gathered the folders and left. At home, Laura was folding laundry in the bedroom. Rena was at school. Can we talk? I said. She looked up, concerned. What's wrong? I set the folders on the bed. I need to show you something. I opened my laptop and pulled up the security footage from the break-in. Laura sat beside me, watching the 2 figures enter the house. I've already seen this, she said. Keep watching. The footage played. The taller figure approached the door. The specific way he moved, the distinctive gait. That's Victor, I said quietly. Laura's face went pale. What? Watch his walk. The slight limp on the right side, the way he turns his head, That's Victor. Tainer, you can't be serious. I pulled up the interior footage. Victor going through the desk, the shorter figure upstairs, Margaret's visit on Friday going through our bedroom. Laura watched in silence, her expression shifting from disbelief to confusion to horror. Why would they? She stopped, unable to finish. I opened the financial folder and showed her the bank statements, her personal account, the deposits. Did you know about this money? I asked. She stared at the screen. No, I haven't checked that account in months. Victor's been depositing money into it. $18,000 total. $5,000 came 6 days before the break-in. I don't understand. Neither do I, but it's connected. Laura stood and walked to the window. She was shaking. My mother wouldn't. There has to be an explanation. Then ask her. I will, right now. She grabbed her phone and called. I could hear it ringing. Then Margaret's voice, cheerful. Laura, honey, what's wrong? Mom, I need you to be honest with me. Why has Victor been putting money into my account? Silence. What are you talking about? Margaret said finally. My personal account. Victor's deposited $18,000 over 8 months. Why? I don't know what you mean. Don't lie to me. Laura, calm down. If Victor gave you money, it was probably just to help out. And the break-in? Was that helping too? What? We have footage, Mom. Security cameras. It shows Victor breaking into our house. The silence lasted longer. That's impossible, Margaret said, defensive now. Victor was with me that night, all night. You're lying. I am not, and I don't appreciate being accused. Is Tainer behind this? Did he put these ideas in your head? Laura looked at me. Her eyes were wet. I saw the footage myself, Mom. I saw the bank records. Then it's a misunderstanding. We'll clear this up at dinner on Sunday. All of us, together. I don't think... Sunday, 6 o'clock. We'll settle this as a family. The connection cut off. Laura set the phone down slowly. She was crying now. Silent tears. She's lying, she whispered. I know. My own mother. I held her while she cried. Everything she'd believed about her family was collapsing. The rest of the week passed in tense silence. Laura stopped answering her mother's calls. Rinna sensed something was wrong, but didn't ask. I worked my shifts and came home to a house that felt like it was holding its breath. On Friday, Rutherford called. I've prepared the complaint. Municipal hearing is scheduled for next Wednesday at 2 p.m. They'll review the evidence and determine if criminal charges are warranted. What do I need to do? Show up, be calm, let the evidence speak. That's it? That's it. The system works, if you let it. Sunday arrived. Laura didn't want to go to dinner, but I convinced her we needed to. They need to see our faces, I said. They need to know we're not afraid. We arrived at Margaret's house at 6. Victor's truck was in the driveway. Through the window I could see them both in the kitchen, preparing food like this was a normal family dinner. Margaret opened the door, smiling. There you are. Come in, come in. The house smelled like roasted chicken. The table was set for 5. Rina headed straight for the TV in the living room. Tainer, Margaret said warmly. Good to see you. Margaret. Victor emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands. He didn't look at me. Dinner's almost ready, Margaret said. Laura, come help me with the salad. Laura followed her mother into the kitchen. I stood in the dining room with Victor. How's the door holding up? He asked. Fine. Good. Good work matters. It does. The silence stretched. Victor shifted his weight, favoring that left leg again. Look, he said quietly. I know things have been weird. But whatever Laura's thinking, whatever you're thinking, it's wrong. We're family. Are we? He met my eyes finally. Yeah, we are. Margaret called us to the table. We sat. Rinna between Laura and me, Margaret and Victor across from us. A normal family dinner except for the tension so thick I could barely breathe. Margaret said grace. We passed dishes. Rina talked about school. Margaret asked about my work. Victor complimented the chicken. Everything normal on the surface, everything poisoned underneath. So, Margaret said, setting down her fork. Laura, have you thought more about what we discussed? About the misunderstanding? Laura's hand tightened on her knife. There's no misunderstanding, Mom. Of course there is. Victor explained everything to me. The money was a gift. He was trying to help without making you feel uncomfortable. By hiding it? By being discreet. And the break-in. Margaret's smile tightened. That wasn't Victor. The video's unclear. It could be anyone. It's him. You're wrong. I'm not. Victor set down his fork. Maybe we should drop this. For Emma's sake. Rhina looked up, confused. Drop what? Nothing, sweetie, Laura said. Finish your dinner. Margaret leaned forward. Tainer, you're a smart man, a doctor. Surely you can see how this looks. You're making accusations based on grainy footage and circumstantial evidence. If you pursue this, you'll tear this family apart. The family's already torn, I said quietly. Because of you. Because of what you did. Her expression shifted. The warmth disappeared. I've done nothing but care for my daughter and granddaughter. Everything I've done has been to protect them. From what? From being left vulnerable. From being dependent on someone who's never there when it matters. There it was, the truth beneath the concern. This isn't about protection, I said. It's about control. Margaret stood up. I think you should leave. We're not finished? Yes, you are. Laura stood too. Come on, Emma, we're going. Rhina protested, but Laura took her hand firmly. We walked to the door. Margaret followed, Victor behind her. If you file charges, Margaret said, I'll fight you. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. Absent, neglectful, so obsessed with work you can't even protect your own home. I turned to face her. Wednesday, 2 p.m., Municipal Courthouse. Be there. Her face went white. What? You'll find out. We left. In the car, Rhina said what was happening. Laura told her everything was fine, we'd explain later. But I saw Laura's face in the rearview mirror. She was done protecting her mother. She was ready for the truth to come out. Wednesday arrived cold and clear. I took the day off work. Laura arranged for Renato to stay with a friend. We drove to the courthouse in silence, both lost in our own thoughts. Rutherford met us in the lobby. Everything's ready. The footage is loaded. Financial records are submitted. Margaret and Victor were served yesterday. How did they react? Laura asked. Victor accepted the summons. Margaret tried to refuse it. Didn't matter. They're required to be here. We walked into the hearing room. It was smaller than I'd expected, more like a conference room than a courtroom. A table at the front for the hearing officer. Rows of chairs, recording equipment in the corner. Margaret and Victor were already there, sitting on the opposite side. Margaret looked composed, dressed in a navy suit. Victor looked ill. A man in his 50s entered and sat at the front table. I'm Officer Reeves. This is an evidentiary hearing regarding a complaint filed by Dr. Tainer Holden. We'll review submitted evidence and testimony. Let's begin. Rutherford stood. Your Honor, we're presenting security footage showing 2 individuals unlawfully entering Dr. Holden's residence on the night of November 8th. The screens mounted on the walls lit up. The footage played. 2 figures approaching the house. The forced entry. Victor's unmistakable gait. The interior shots showing them searching through rooms. Margaret's face remained neutral, but her hands gripped the armrests. We also submit financial records showing unexplained deposits from Victor Caldwell into Laura Holden's personal account. $18,000 over 8 months, with a significant deposit occurring 6 days prior to the break-in. The records appeared on screen. Each transaction highlighted. Each date marked. Officer Reeves studied them carefully. Mr. Caldwell, can you explain these deposits? Victor stood slowly. They were gifts, to help family. Why not give them directly? Laura's proud. I didn't want to embarrass her. And the break-in? That wasn't me. The footage shows someone who walks like me. Lots of people have similar gaits. Reeves turned to Margaret. Mrs. Caldwell, where were you the night of November 8th? Home. Victor was with me all night. You're certain? Completely. Rutherford stood again. We have additional footage from this past Friday, November 12th. New video appeared. Margaret in our bedroom, going through the desk, taking photos with her phone. Margaret's composure cracked. Laura asked me to check on something. Laura stood up. I never asked you to do that. You implied. I didn't. You broke into my home, again. Officer Reeves raised his hand. Mrs. Caldwell, did you have permission to be in that residence? I'm family. I don't need permission. That's incorrect. Dr. Holden is the sole property owner. You were trespassing. Margaret's face flushed. This is absurd. I'm being persecuted for caring about my daughter. You're being held accountable for breaking the law, Reeves said calmly. He looked at Victor. Mr. Caldwell, final opportunity. Was that you in the footage from November 8th? Victor looked at Margaret. She shook her head slightly. No, he said. Then we'll enhance the footage and submit it for forensic analysis. If it matches your physical profile, you'll face criminal charges for burglary, trespassing, and conspiracy. Victor's resolve crumbled. Wait. Victor, don't, Margaret hissed. I can't do this anymore. He looked at Reeves. It was me. I broke in. Margaret asked me to. The room went silent. She wanted me to find documents, property deeds, financial statements. She thought if Laura's name was added to the house, if something happened to Tainer, Laura would inherit everything. And the money? Margaret gave it to me, told me to deposit it in Laura's account, said it would show a pattern of support, make Laura more dependent on her, make it easier to claim she deserved access to Tainer's assets. Margaret stood up. You're lying. I'm not. I'm tired of lying. Officer Reeves made notes. Mrs. Caldwell, do you wish to respond? He's trying to save himself by blaming me. I had nothing to do with any of this. The footage shows you searching Dr. Holden's home on Friday. That's different. That's family business. It's trespassing, and given Mr. Caldwell's testimony, it establishes a pattern. Reeves gathered his papers. I'm forwarding this case to the district attorney with a recommendation for criminal charges. Mrs. Caldwell, Mr. Caldwell, you're both ordered to have no contact with Dr. Holden or his family pending trial. If you violate this order, you'll be arrested immediately. Margaret's face twisted. Laura, you can't let them do this. I'm your mother. Laura stood. Her voice was steady. You stopped being my mother when you decided to use me as a weapon against my husband. I was protecting you. You were protecting your ego, because Tainer succeeded without you, because we built a life that didn't revolve around you. That's not... It is. And I'm done. Laura walked out. I followed. Rutherford stayed behind to handle paperwork. In the parking lot, Laura leaned against the car and started crying again. But this time it was different. Relief mixed with grief. It's over, she said. It's over. I can't believe she... My whole life, I thought. I know. She looked at me. Thank you. For what? For not giving up? For fighting when I couldn't see what was right in front of me? I pulled her close. That's what family does. We drove home. Renawas waiting when we arrived, full of questions. Laura sat her down and explained everything carefully, honestly. Rina cried too, but eventually nodded. So Grandma's not allowed to visit anymore? Not for a while, Laura said. That's okay. She was kind of mean anyway. The next week passed quietly. Margaret tried calling twice. Both times Laura didn't answer. Victor sent a text apologizing. Laura blocked his number. The district attorney's office contacted Rutherford. They were moving forward with charges. Burglary, conspiracy, fraud. Margaret hired a lawyer. Victor took a plea deal. He'll testify against her, Rutherford explained over the phone, in exchange for reduced charges, probably probation and restitution. And Margaret? She'll fight it. But the evidence is overwhelming. She'll lose. I went back to work. The ER felt normal again, manageable. The chaos of other people's emergencies was easier to handle than the chaos that had been waiting at home. Laura started therapy. Rina joined her for a few sessions. They were processing, healing, learning to trust again. One evening, 2 weeks after the hearing, Laura came into my office where I was reviewing patient notes. I closed that account, she said. The one Victor was using, transferred everything to our joint account. Good. And I talked to a lawyer about adding my name to the deed, if you're okay with that. Of course I am. I should have done it years ago, but Mom always made it seem like asking would be, I don't know, greedy. It's not greedy. It's smart. She sat down. I keep thinking about what she said, about you never being here, and I know she was wrong. I know she was trying to manipulate me, but what? Do you ever wish you worked different hours? I thought about it. Sometimes, but this is who I am. This is what I do. I know, and I love that about you, but maybe we could find a balance. Maybe one day you could switch to day shifts when Emma's older. Maybe, she smiled. That's enough for now. That Sunday, we had dinner at home, just the three of us. Rina made spaghetti with help from Laura. I set the table. We ate together, laughing about Emma's stories from school, making plans for Thanksgiving without Margaret for the first time in years. It felt lighter, easier, like something poisonous had been drained away. After Rina went to bed, Laura and I sat on the couch. Do you think she'll ever apologize? Laura asked. Margaret? Yeah. No. People like that don't apologize. They just rewrite the story until they're the victim. That's sad. It is. I feel like I should be angrier, but mostly I just feel free. Good. She leaned against me. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You weren't supposed to. She spent your whole life training you not to. We sat in comfortable silence, the TV playing quietly. Outside, the neighborhood was dark and peaceful. The security cameras recorded nothing but passing cars and wandering cats. Monday morning, Rutherford called with news. Margaret's lawyer contacted me. She wants to settle. Settle what? Everything. Criminal charges, civil damages, restraining order. She'll plead to reduce charges, pay restitution, agree to permanent no contact. Why the sudden change? Victor's testimony is damning. Her lawyer knows they'll lose at trial. She's trying to minimize damage. What's she offering? Guilty plea to trespassing and conspiracy, 5 years probation, $50,000 in restitution, permanent restraining order. She never contacts you or your family again. And if we don't accept, we go to trial. She likely gets convicted on all charges, possibly jail time, but it takes months and puts Laura through testimony. What do you recommend? Take it. You've won. She's gone. Don't drag this out. I discussed it with Laura that night. She didn't hesitate. Take it. I don't want to see her in court. I don't want to hear her voice. I just want her gone. The settlement was finalized by Friday. Margaret signed. Victor signed. The restraining order went into effect immediately. That night I stood in the driveway looking at the house. The same white siding, the same blue shutters. Emma's bike still against the garage, but it felt different now. Protected, secure, not because of cameras or locks, but because the real threat had been identified and removed. Laura came outside and stood beside me. What are you thinking? She asked. That we should get a dog. She laughed. Really? Yeah, Rana would love it. And honestly, a dog sounds nice. Okay, let's do it. We went inside together, closing the door behind us. The next few weeks passed in careful reconstruction. Margaret tried calling twice. Both times, Laura didn't answer. Victor sent a text apologizing. Laura blocked his number. The district attorney's office contacted Rutherford. They were moving forward with charges: burglary, conspiracy, fraud. Margaret hired a lawyer. Victor took a plea deal. He'll testify against her, Rutherford explained over the phone, in exchange for reduced charges, probably probation and restitution. And Margaret? She'll fight it, but the evidence is overwhelming. I went back to work. The ER felt manageable again. Laura started therapy. Rinna joined her for a few sessions. They were processing, healing, learning to trust again. 2 weeks after the hearing, Laura came into my office where I was reviewing patient notes. I closed that account, she said, the one Victor was using, transferred everything to our joint account. Good. And I talked to a lawyer about adding my name to the deed, if you're okay with that. Of course I am. She sat down. I keep thinking about what she said, about you never being here. And I know she was wrong, but maybe we could find a balance. Maybe one day you could switch to day shifts. Maybe, she smiled. That's enough for now. That Sunday, we had dinner at home, just the three of us. Rena made spaghetti with Laura's help. I set the table. We ate together, laughing about Emma's stories from school, making plans for Thanksgiving without Margaret for the first time in years. It felt lighter, like something poisonous had been drained away.